Okay friends, it's time to get started on replacing our alternator. Yes, we're in the trunk of the vehicle. Come right here and lift up this panel. Behind that, you're gonna find your negative battery terminal. Use a 10mm, loosen this and remove the wire from your battery. Once you have that disconnected, make sure you set it aside so it's gonna make no contact with the battery terminal. Once you've done that, continue on under the hood. Now, once you're under the hood, we're gonna have to gain access to the alternator. That's gonna be located down in this area. As you can tell, there's a whole bunch of things in the way. So let's gain access. We'll start right over here at the mass airflow sensor. I'll use a small pocket screwdriver and carefully lift up on this tab. Once I have it lifted, I'll gently pull the wiring out of the area. Give it a quick inspection for funny colors. If you see anything in there, it's probably corrosion and that would need to be dealt with. We'll set this aside. The next thing we need to start doing is removing this top cover here. To get this off, we're gonna move over to the clamp. We'll use a 6mm or a flathead screwdriver to loosen this enough that we can slide this off of the box. Once you have that off of there, move along to your 4 metallic clips. You're gonna find 2 on the driver's side, and then you'll find another 2 over towards the passenger side of it. To remove them, it's fairly easy. Just gently pry them off. Grab onto this, lift it up and away. Underneath that, you'll find your air filter. Go ahead and remove that. Give it a quick inspection. If it needs to be replaced, now's the perfect time. Now let's grab onto the lower box. We're gonna start trying to lift this up and away from the body. As you lift it, you're gonna find that you have 2 little pitons that come protruding up and through. So we'll just go ahead and lift it up and pop it free. Now let's grab our air inlet tube, pop that off of there. Now with all that out of the way, we have a nice clear view of our alternator down in here. But as you can tell, we have some more digging to do. Let's get this power steering reservoir out of the way. As you look at the top of it, you're gonna find that you have 2 T40 Torx screws. There's one here, and there's one more towards the passenger side. Let's remove the pair. Go ahead and grab onto that power steering reservoir and we'll pull it aside. Now we can start removing the bracket from the area. Looking behind here, you're going to find that you have a clip that comes through and it holds this in place. We'll squeeze on this, slide it through. Here we are. The next thing we want to do is release the tension on the belt so we can slide it off of the alternator. You can gain access to the tensioner in through this area, but to make it a little bit easier overall, we're gonna go ahead and remove this top plastic area. To remove the top plastic, we're gonna move along to 4 T30 screws. Should have one right here. Ours is missing. Go ahead and grab that plastic cover, give it a quick inspection, and set it aside. With that plastic cover out of the way, let's continue on to these 4 T30 screws as well. Go ahead and grab that plastic piece, give it a little wiggle to break it free, lift it up and away from the vehicle. Now with that out of the way, we have a nice clear view of where our belt tensioner is located. Before you go ahead and do anything with that, just pay attention to the belt routing. Now I'll continue with a T60 Torx bit. We'll put it into the tensioner and turn the tensioner clockwise to relieve tension. Once you've done that, carefully pull the belt off of your alternator. Once I get it off of there, typically I try to leave the belt on every pulley I can. It's just one less thing I have to worry about in the end. Now let's move along the driver's side of the alternator. We're looking for our wiring. You're going to find a 17mm nut here. Go ahead and loosen that and remove the wire from the alternator. Set that aside. Now we can move to our smaller wire. Down along the bottom of the connector, there's a little tab. Squeeze it. Remove the wiring. Give it a quick inspection for corrosion, and then set it aside. Now it's going to be time to start removing the alternator and the alternator bracket. They're held in place with 4 E12 bolts. Once this bolt is loose, leave it in there a few threads. Continue on by fully removing your other 3. All right, at this point, everything's nice and loose. We're ready to fully remove our final bolt, and we can take everything out of here. Keep in mind, once you remove this bolt, the alternator is going to want to fall down. You don't want it to damage anything. I'll make sure I'm holding the alternator while I remove my final bolt. Now with the alternator out of the vehicle, we're going to continue on to removing our idler pulley. First, we're going to remove the plastic cover. I'll use a small screwdriver for this and gently pry it off. We're going to be reusing this, so don't discard it. Underneath that, you're going to find a 16mm headed bolt that goes through the idler pulley into the alternator. Go ahead and remove that bolt. We'll remove that bolt, turn it around, and you're going to find that you have a spacer on the back side. I always like to clean this stuff down before I install it onto the new alternator. I'll go ahead and clean this, set it aside. There it is, friends. Okay, friends, it's time to get ready to install our brand new alternator. Now we're going to take our idler pulley, we'll start it in by hand, snug it up. We'll torque this later once the alternator is mounted in the vehicle. Let's carefully get the alternator back into the vehicle. Once I have this set in here, I'll continue by grabbing my bracket as well. For the bracket, you want to make sure you have it in the proper positioning. This hole right here is facing down. Go ahead and start in any one of your mounting bolts. Once you have that one started, continue on by starting in all the rest. Once they're all started, snug them up. After you have them bottomed out, we're going to continue torquing these in a two-stage sequence. First, we'll torque each of them to 10 Newton meters. Once you've done that, torque it an additional 180 degrees. Now it's time to torque our idler pulley. We'll torque that to 80 Newton meters. That's essentially 59 foot-pounds. Now we can put on our protective cover. Listen for a click, give it a tug to make sure it's secure. Now let's carefully grab our belt and we're going to start installing it. Now for this, I still have my tool in the tensioner. I'll relieve tension from the belt so I can slide it over my pulley. Now that I release tension from the tensioner, I want to inspect the belt and make sure it's sitting on all the pulleys properly. Looking up at where I put it over the alternator pulley, you can tell it's sitting off by approximately half a tooth. By being off even half a tooth like this, it could potentially permanently damage the belt. I'll just go ahead and release tension here again, slide it back into the proper position. Now we're just going to double check that. Make sure it's sitting in the grooves. It's also a good idea to make sure it's sitting in the grooves on every single pulley. Take your time, double check. It's very important. Let's start reconnecting our electrical connectors. We'll press this lower one in, listen for a click, give it a tug, make sure it's secure. Remove the electrical wire mounting nut from your new alternator. The next thing you want to do is inspect your electrical wire. If you see any dirt or corrosion or rust, go ahead and sand it down. You want to make sure you have a good contact point from the wire. Assuming it looks good, we'll go ahead and slide it right on there. Now at this point, you can either put on your brand new mounting nut or use your original. For me personally, I like the fact that the original has a coating around it, a protective coating. Since mine's reusable, I'll use it on this. Bottom them out by hand, and then go ahead and make sure it's snug. Give that wire a wiggle to make sure it's secured to the alternator. Let's get this plastic piece reinstalled. Once I have it slid in place, I'm going to start in all 4 of my mounting bolts. Once they're all started, we can snug them up. Now let's get this forward shield on here. Looking along this aspect, you can tell exactly where it needs to slide under this area. Go ahead and line that up, slide it forward. Line up all 4 of your mounting bolt holes, start in all 4 bolts, and then snug them up. Our 4th bolt was missing. Let's get our power steering reservoir attached. Once again, start in both of your mounting bolts before you snug either. All right, let's go ahead and put in our lower air filter box. Looking at the bottom of it, you're going to find 2 rubber grommets. Down on the body of the vehicle, you'll find the 2 areas that those need to press onto. Let's take that lower box, line it up. Once you have it lined up, just go ahead and press it into position. Give it a tug to make sure it's completely secured. After you have that in there, continue on with your air filter. Now let's install our upper air filter box. As we slide this on, we're going to go ahead and connect it to the air inlet tube. Now that we have that on there, let's line up the upper box with the lower and put on all 4 of our locking clips. Make sure you tighten your clamp. Reconnect in your mass airflow sensor. Let's get this air inlet tube on there as well. One side goes onto the air filter box. The other side comes right into this area here. Once you have everything back together in the engine compartment, make your way back to the battery. We're going to press that terminal down as far as you can onto the battery and tighten your 10mm nut. Make sure that's nice and tight. After that, go ahead and close your hatch and your trunk. Okay friends, we finished installing the alternator. At this point, you want to carefully start up the vehicle, let it run for approximately 5 seconds, and turn it off immediately. After that, make your way back out here and double check that serpentine belt. It needs to be sitting on all those grooves properly. Once you're sure it's sitting on all the grooves, go ahead and start it back up again, let it run, make sure you don't have a check engine light, and take it for a road test. Thanks for watching.